9:01 a.m. on March 6th, 2020. I will now call roll. Frank?
Here.
Rhonda?
Here.
Jonathan?
Here.
Scott?
Here.
And Bonnie?
Here.
Members, during the course of the meeting, please wait to speak until you've been recognized. Once you've been recognized, please state your last name. Audience members are asked to sign in on the attendance roster, and public interested parties' feedback may be heard during the public interested parties' feedback period if indicated on the agenda. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocol when conducting board business. This meeting is called to order. Second item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. If I could get a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve. This is John.
John made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Here, this is Frank.
So Frank made a second. I will now call roll, indicate with yay or nay. Frank?
Yay.
Rhonda?
Yay.
Jonathan?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay.
And Bonnie?
Yay.
Okay. Moving right along, we are on item number 3, which is reports. So first thing, director's report. So I don't know if you guys have been paying attention or not, but the legislation adjourned yesterday about 2:30-ish as a failed session due to the fact that the Republicans had walked out and refused to come back. So they called off session. Officially, it doesn't close, I guess, until Sunday. However, if the Republicans aren't there, then they can't do anything. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but it basically means that all bills, I think there might be like maybe one that had actually gone through the whole entire process, but all bills this session will not pass. That means every single bill that was up for them to make decisions on will not pass, which includes helping fund certain parts of the state who were devastated by flooding this year, or fire crews, all kinds of, so it's all kinds of stuff. If you've been paying attention to the news, the biggest culprit of it was the cap and trade bill. And so we're kind of in this weird limbo that we've never been in ever before. I don't think I've ever experienced a session that did not move forward. So that's an interesting update for those of you who like to keep track of that stuff. We did have several bills that were going to affect us, which obviously now they will not. So we are under the assumption that they will be part of the next session, which starts in February of next year. So moving right along, we'll go, any questions on that? Okay. We can move on to the statistics. The first one is the registrations issued. This is as of February 24th when the reports were ran. Again, it's broken out by quarter. You can see the amount of wastewater specialists that we issue are slim to none. We've done, I think, looks like one wastewater specialist in the last, that would be 4 years. So it's not very many. No wastewater specialist trainees. The bottom half of it is for renewals that were processed, and then the percentage of individuals who renew online. Any questions on any of that one? I know you guys have all seen this before, so I'll just keep going, and if you have questions, then just stop me. The next slide shows active registration broken out by age and gender, and also by whether or not you're a sanitarian or a wastewater specialist. And then, as I've said before, individuals do not have to legally give us their gender. So there will be times that there will be a mark that won't say male or female. Next slide just shows the trend over a long period of time, pretty stable. And it's an average, so this is the average for the quarter. It's not the actual number for that day, but just, again, very, very stable lines. The next slide shows the actual number of registrations as of February 24th. So there was 246 environmental health specialists, 34 environmental health trainees and 9 wastewater specialists. Next slide shows your financials.
Hey, Sylvie,
Yes?
this is John. So
Yep.
does the number of wastewater specialists put us at any risk, or is that normal for?
That's normal. If you go back 2 slides where the one that shows, the one that looks like this,
Right.
you can see, sorry, for those of you on the phone, when I say the one that looks like this, you're supposed to be able to read my mind. Shows the registration volume trend, so the one that goes for a very long period of time. It has the blue line across the top, which is it for environmental health specialists. And then the orange line, which is the third one from the bottom, third one up from the bottom, shows the environmental health specialist trainees. And then that number of wastewater is the gray. So when you say Q1 of fiscal year 17, so that is July, August, and September of 2016. Then you had 9, now you have 9. So, in the last 4 years, it has not changed much. I mean, it'll go up and then, down 1. That make sense? Okay. So we're on the financial page, the one that shows your revenue and expenditures, which is looking great. Down across the bottom shows the shared assessment. So it'll show that how it changes. So we like to readjust it every July 1 based on the fact that the office continues to keep growing. The shared assessment gets divvied out to all 16 boards and programs that are now currently under the office. We were going to get a new program, but since session stopped, I'm assuming that program will not come on now until the next session, which starts in 21, so it probably won't come on to us until January 1 of 22, so in a couple more years. But we like to readjust the allocation based on the number of licensees the office is regulating, so that's why your shared assessment changes over time. Any questions on any of this? God, you guys are an easy crowd. Moving right along. Regulatory report. Bob.
Good morning, this is Bob Bothwell for the record. I've got 2 bienniums showing for the regulatory report. The 2017-2019 biennium, we had a total of 4 complaints. We have 1 remaining open, and with 3 closed, obviously. 2019-2021 biennium, we've got 3 complaints and 3 are open. Any questions?
Go ahead.
None that we need to take action on, or
Not at this point, no. When they're closed, we'll bring it for the board, and the one that's 17-19, I talked to the investigator this morning, and it's just a prioritizing. It's what we do most of the day is prioritize, and then we get to investigate. So with all the programs. But, yeah, he said he saw that your next board meeting is several months out. He says he'll have it done. He'll have it done by then.
So this is Sylvie. So your next board meeting is not scheduled till October 2nd. So if there was a case that we did need you to make a decision on as a group, then we would instantly call a board meeting and say, hey, we need you to review this, and So there are times where the board does need to decide if a civil penalty needs to be done or if education needs to be done. So we will bring it to you. Sometimes things are pretty clear that they're in the rule, or sometimes through the investigative process we realize they didn't do anything wrong. Yes. So just because your next meeting's not till October, if there was something that came up that you needed to make a decision on, we would immediately contact you and say, hey, we need to have a meeting. Can you meet on this day, or this day? Any other questions?
This is Scott Kruger. I did have a question. Why were we set up in GovSpace, and what's the purpose of that?
So GovSpace is a secure state website that allows us to post documents to that are confidential. It allows us to post up those documents. So for instance, if we had a case that we needed you to review, those documents are all confidential, and we can post them there. Then you can log in and look at them. It won't let you print them. It won't let you
Change it.
save as, it won't let you change anything, it just only lets you view them so that you can then read in advance and get up to speed when we do need to have you make a decision. Because there's times that we will subpoena records and there'll be a lot of records and we'll need you to read something and be prepared to discuss it. So we would send it to you, or we post it up there, we send you an email saying you need to go log in and read this, and we would do that in advance so that when you came to a board meeting, you were prepared to be able to make a decision on a case. That's what it's for. Yeah, but it's a real high security for confidential information. So we use that. Some of our boards have a lot of medical records, which are extremely confidential. And so we just use that as our place to be able to let you view stuff without it being compromised.
Well, that was my understanding, but I just wanted to make sure, so.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah.
That way you don't spend your whole day here reviewing one thing.
It's interesting how it acts, because
It's very
says that
secure.
Like stuff, it says Scott Kruger created something, and I'm like, it didn't create
No, it didn't.
anything.
It keeps track of everything. So it keeps track of exactly when you log in, how long you're in there, and then it won't let you, like I said, it won't let you print it.
Right.
Like you can't, and it won't let you do a save as, so try to save it to your desktop or anything, it won't let you.
Right.
So we have all those security issues in there. So some of our cases, not necessarily with you, but some of our cases are, you have thousands and thousands of pages of medical records, and board members need time to go through, because they know what they're looking for, need time to go through all that and stuff. So, but we use that for year 1 of 16, so, yeah. And hopefully, you'll never have to use it, but it is there for if we do need it. That's way better. We try to get every single board member set up on that, so that when we need it,
You're ready to
it's
go.
ready to go. Okay? Any questions? Sorry, anybody on the phone have any questions?
This was Rhonda, none from me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rhonda. Okay, we'll move on then. We're in the policy section. So you guys had asked Ann to send out an email to remind everybody about, that registration is required in Oregon. So there's a copy of the letter that she sent out in October of last year. And hopefully everybody's had a chance to read that. But that is the letter that she sent out to all licensees and all interested parties.
And for the record, this is Ann and board members. I also plumbed the bowels of the internet and sent this letter to every county, everybody I could think of that might, school systems, anybody who might have a role or have somebody in a job that could possibly overlap. So not just our little emails, but everybody got this letter. So.
Oh my Lord. Okay, so we are now on the public interested parties feedback, which is item number 4 on the agenda. However, there is no public or interested parties in the audience. So we will move on to item number 5, which is other board business. Does anybody have anything they would like to talk about, or anything you want to make sure is on the October 2nd board meeting?
Yeah, this is Scott Kruger. I have another question. I have a steady stream of public health interns coming to my office for potentially working in the environmental health field. And it's not clear to me, and I'm positive that you have addressed this issue before, but I can't really completely remember everything that you said regarding what qualifies as science-based courses, what doesn't qualify, and who. And I would assume that okay, I'm not going to make any assumptions. It's not clear to me how to guide somebody when they seem to have science-based courses, but then
They're not counted.
ultimately they're not accepted. And I'm assuming that there's something that makes that, some list or somebody that makes that decision, but obviously it's not us at the county level. So how do we provide guidance to somebody other than they just work through you and it either is or it isn't?
And working through us is always the easiest one. The way that the statute, this is Sylvie, the way the statute is written, it says science courses specifically related to environmental sanitation. So when you have an individual, say for me, for instance, who went to school and got a bachelor's degree, but my bachelor's degree is in business. Well, I have to take science courses. So I take, the required science courses. Those science courses are not specifically related to environmental sanitation. Those are your basic science courses, your
Biology.
the 101, all the 101 series, because, I have to take a year of science. Those don't count. So when it has to be specifically related to environmental sanitation. So it's related to the environment and all that kind of stuff. Not your basic science courses that I just took because I have a degree in underwater basket weaving.
Right.
Does that make sense? And that's what we always tell them. It's like, you have to have this intent of taking classes that are very specific to what the definition of environmental sanitation is. Because again, it's 45 science hours. That's a lot of science hours. Because mine was only, 3, 9, 12? Because you have to take a year, right? But my science courses would not count. Because those are just your basic science.
Right.
That's typically what we would tell them. And you don't have to have it in your bachelor's degree. You can have it after. But it really needs to be related very specifically to environmental sanitation. Is what we tell them. And then we will say, if we're unsure on a class, it's like we will go and get the curriculum. We can go out to that school's website and print off their syllabus or whatever for that class. Or we have the applicant say, okay, you tell us how this class fits into environmental sanitation because I'm not seeing it. And so we usually will work with them, but usually when they are not sure, it's because it doesn't count. They're trying to stretch their science, It's when you are going into an environmental sanitation, you know what it is. You know what classes should or shouldn't count. And so that's usually, we usually will work one-on-one with each individual applicant. Especially if it's like they took a bachelor's degree and then they got science courses later and they're trying to piecemeal stuff together. Because remember, it used to have to be the 45 was in your bachelor's degree. Now it's not. So sometimes we'll be piecemealing stuff and we'll say, that class doesn't count because that's like biology 101 or chemistry 101.
Right. So if my understanding of what you just said was generally general undergrad core classes would generally not apply, but classes that are related to an environmental health degree, which they don't have at Oregon State, but they have a public health degree, those would generally qualify.
Correct.
So if they're in a core curriculum, fine, but just because I took microbiology doesn't qualify, or I took a bio class or some other thing because it was a basic requirement of...
Right, and it might count, kind of depends. So the class, if you choose to take microbiology, that's a bit different than your standard science classes that you take for somebody who's not getting a science degree. Mm-hmm. So, we try to do each individual applicant, especially when they're piecemealing, because if they don't have a degree in environmental health, then it's piecemealing. So we're trying to pick this class will work, this class won't work. And this class, I'm not sure, you need to give me more information on what was in this class.
Well, we just recently had somebody that didn't qualify and was going to need to take classes and then ended up ultimately quitting because they couldn't qualify, and I was just trying to work it through why it's hard. There's lots of counties that are vying for environmental health specialists to fill positions, and it's getting kind of difficult for some folks, and so I'm just
that's been an
trying
issue.
to understand.
Yeah. It's been an issue. For as long as this board has been with me, that's been an issue. Or I've been with this, whatever. I did go down a couple years ago when Jeff was on the board. He asked me to come speak at the association meeting down in
Florence.
You were on the coast.
You were in Florence.
Florence, yeah. Because we as an office and this board cannot promote the profession. He, as an individual, could. He was on the board at the time, and so that's where they were talking. He talked about that kind of stuff, not as a board member, but as a licensee. And then I talked about how to qualify and all that stuff because we can't promote the profession. But it's always been an issue. So it's trying to get people to understand what the profession does. For one, a lot of people don't know. If you're not an environmental health specialist, they don't know what that means. And then how to get qualified and all the different ways that we will work with you on getting a license and how to get the experience and So it's for as long as I've been around, that's been an issue.
And this is another option if the profession is moved away from your statutes. is to have your association change your statutes, open them up, and make them more reflective of what's going on in the world. But that's not our role. We put things into place. We don't facilitate change that way. But if the association wants to go and says this is no longer tenable, you can certainly propose a change.
And I'll meet with whomever wants to do something like that and explain how it works, what you need to do, what would be the best way to say it in the statutes and all that stuff. It's not like we're not involved, but we don't initiate that.
Yeah, we're not the driver. We can't be the driver on that.
Ultimately, that sounds like, well, changing statute has to get approved by the legislature.
Yes.
Because you're talking about statute, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
That's the legislative process.
Right.
And bills end up in the big book.
If
and then
session passes.
If everybody shows up and does, they have to do their part, we have to do our part, the three branches of government. And if a bill goes through that makes changes, well, then your rules would change in line with your new statutes and things would change. But we're not the ones, and it's not our board's position to step forward and say, we don't like this, we want it to be changed. Our position is to be neutral on legislation and put into effect what is given to us.
Would it be possible that you could send the statute numbers so that I could review those about?
They're on our website too.
Are they on there?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
well, I just needed to get a little deeper then, so I'll look at that myself then.
Yeah, sure. You can go onto our website and it has all the boards and programs. For the record, this is Ann. On the front page, and you just scroll down, you see all of our players, and you just click on environmental health, and then your individual page will come up and it has laws and rules.
Okay.
And you can read your statutes and then see how the rules dovetail with those.
Okay. Well, bad on me, because I should already know that, so I'll
Oh, you're fine.
We're not judging.
Yeah, it'll have user-friendly versions that we have created that are easier to read, but that's not the official statute. You'd have to go over to the legislative page, but you don't want to read those because they're not the easiest to read.
Right.
If you're
The way
not
that
used to
they
reading
format
them, your head will break.
Yes. So there are ones that we've created out there that are a PDF format.
Yeah, it's all good. Drinking water rule.
Yes.
It's kind of intense.
Yes.
Ooh, you might want to lie down after that one.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
This is Rhonda. I'd like to be involved and try and change the statutes if possible.
Sure, Rhonda. So on if you go out to our website, what I would recommend is printing off your statutes, and then getting together whatever group, because you cannot go forward as a board member to change the statutes, but you could as an individual or as a group. But get that group together and you guys all come to a kind of a consensus on what you want to change or alter or talk about. And then let me know and we can set up a meeting here at the office and I can kind of talk to you about the process and what you need to be doing or not doing or pros and cons of whatever it is you're wanting to do. Okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah, and then we'll want to, if you guys want to make some changes, we're going to need to get on that. You'll want to be able to I would say have a meeting prior to our October meeting, because there's a whole process to it and it takes a long time because you have to get a legislator on board with whatever changes you're wanting to do. So if you guys get a group together that want to meet here, we can use our facility, obviously, be the easiest for a lot of people. And then we can kind of talk about all that.
Okay.
Okay, so just let me know when you're ready.
I will. And this is Ann, right?
No, this is Sylvie, sorry.
Sylvie, okay.
Yep. Frank, were you going to say something?
Yeah, hi, this is Frank Brown. So don't we have to be a little conscientious that we can't have 3 board members in the room having a conversation about this type of topic or something along those lines? Can you advise me on that?
No, you can have as many board members in that room because you're not doing board business. The board does not, it's not board business. You're beginning talking about stuff. So you can't talk about board business. But I would also be very cautious because the instant you do mention anything about board business and have a quorum in the room, you're going to get in some hot water. So if there's, sorry, go ahead.
I would think it's important that we all remember that, and like only have a few of us volunteering to be on an OEHA group that would work with you on this topic. That seems to me to be the route to go from a kind of an ethical perspective.
Right. And you guys are all welcome to like correspond via email and talk about in my profession or at my office this, and this is what I'd like to change and here's why. And then when we meet, have it only be no more than 2 board members so that there isn't that perception of
Backdoor shenanigans.
Yep. And especially in just when and if it ever goes to the legislation, know that every single board member can testify. You just have to say, yes, I'm on the board. However, I'm an environmental health specialist and here's my blah, 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 blah. So just because you won't all necessarily be in the meetings talking about this changes, doesn't mean that you won't be able to talk to the legislators about the change.
Thank you.
Of course. Is there anything anybody else has or wants to say before we finish this up? God, you guys are easy. Nothing? Okay, well, if you think of anything between now and October 2nd, just email either me or Ann and we'll make sure it gets on the agenda. So,
Thank you.
oh, no problem. The Environmental Health Registration Board meeting is adjourned at 9:27 a.m.